All right, so we will today start with AI/ML solution. I've just written NLP, but we'll focus on other aspects as well. So in today's class, we will go through natural language processing in real life. We will look into computer vision in real life. We will go through one case study of data strategy which you have to create for any data science problem. It's not all about scripting and creating machine learning algorithms in your day-to-day task, but there are a lot of things associated which we'll talk about today. The next is data privacy and building trust, which is very much important whenever you create a AI and machine learning algorithm or a AI or machine learning product, because you at times have to pitch and deliver solutions which are, you know, which go through all of these aspects of data privacy and building trust. Now we all know that data are primarily can be divided into two parts. There are other parts as well, but for now try to understand that we have two types of data. One is the structured data and the other is the unstructured data, and we also have a semi-structured data, but we will talk about it, or we have already talked about it, but we will focus today on structured data and unstructured data. Now NLP is something which basically follows or fits into the unstructured aspect of the data. Now, what is a structured data? Structured data is something which has a predefined format. For example, in Excel, right? It has a predefined format of a row and a column, and you can create as many rows as you want, and you can create as many columns as you want. So it's all about structured data. Now, examples of structured data can be spreadsheet, your Excel sheet, which you use in your day-to-day life. It can be any table which you see in a database or in a spreadsheet, or if it is residing in some URL, right? And the third one is your databases, like any type of database, be it um, a NoSQL database or a SQL database or whatever it is. So it is actually a structured data because it follows a predefined format. All right, then we have some semi-structured data, which basically is something like a JSON format, which is not in a tabular structure. It is predefined, but the structure is uh, not very much understandable by a layman. Say for example, if I give an Excel sheet to a 5-year kid or a 6-year kid, um, or probably anyone who is non-technical, he will be able to understand what I'm trying to portray or what I'm trying to discuss in a class, or in a day-to-day life. But if I show a JSON file to someone, they might understand what's inside it, but they will not be able to figure out what type of data is present for what type of attribute. So that is a semi-structured data. Now we come to unstructured data, which is does not have a predefined specific format. Okay, it is very abrupt. For example, if I write an email, right, my email format might be very different from your email format. So it does not have a predefined specific format. And that's the main challenge with data engineers who are data scientists who want to gather data for their own use. Say for example, if I ask you to fetch data from a table in a database, what you can do is you can just fetch the data from the table by writing one set of code, right? Or the same line of code. Say for example, select star from the table, okay, and it will fetch all the data which is present. All right, but if I want to fetch the details of an email, right, my email might be different, and even in my email box you might have thousand types of emails written, right? Someone writes regards Alankar, someone writes your faithfully Alankar, your sincerely Alankar. So this is how the format is very different. Okay, so this is a unstructured data, and unstructured data can be anything like a chat or a blog or a book or an audio file, a video file, an image, whatever it is, right? It is not structured. It does not have a predefined structured format. Okay, that's why whenever we see a report which is published by any organization, right? Say for example, an annual report by which is published by a company, right? Or the earnings report of any company. So take any company, your company for example, where you work, right? They release their earnings report every quarter, right? Now if you closely look into these reports, what you'll see is they have a structured format. Every time they publish, they have a structured format. The uh, you know the header will be same, The contents might be different, but the headers will be same. Okay. The table of contents might be same, right? So the structure of the data does not changes, right? Because they want to keep the data as structured as possible. But in there also, after say a year or 1.5, say for example pre-COVID and post-COVID, right? When after COVID, they wanted to report something, they might have changed something on the table of contents. So it again becomes unstructured, because if you compare the format, what it had 3 years back and what it is now, it's very different. So again, it becomes unstructured. So that's why we say that however you want to keep the emails or chats or blogs structured, they will become unstructured due to various reasons. Now, as a data scientist, I want you to, understand or question yourself which kind of data is predominant in today's world. How does having this type data, help us? What do you think are the challenges with this type of data, right? So can someone tell me over the chat what kind of data is predominant in today's world, whether it's structured or semi-structured or unstructured? Bhargav says unstructured. Satish says unstructured. Sukanya says unstructured. Okay, right. So we have unstructured data which is predominant in today's day. Why? Because we have social media and streaming data which is coming out of you know different devices, and it's increasing and increasing, and all these data are unstructured. The video contents we create, or the audio contents we create, all are unstructured in in nature, and this is almost doubling every year. So the unstructured data is predominant in today's world. So that's why we'll be discussing a case study on NLP today. Okay. How does having the data help us? Okay. This type of data helps us to, get more insights from the data. Okay. This is how it helps us. What do you think are the challenges with this kind of data? The major challenges with this type of data is that, these are not, structured enough, and we have to create different systems now which can handle this type of big data for us. And that's why you see products like Spark coming into picture. Scripting like PySpark comes into picture, because at times you cannot just process data through Python, because if it becomes um, enormous and it's very difficult to handle, you have to have your PySpark applications, uh, Spark applications, and you can write your um, query in Spark SQL or PySpark and so on. Okay, now the types of data. If you see, we humans communicate predominantly in unstructured data. This is what you have answered, and it is specifically in natural language, right? Your natural language might be different from my language, or a person from Africa might have a different language altogether from the rest of the world. But the thing is, we are actually dealing with the natural language. Okay. And 70 to 90% of the total data in today's world is unstructured in data in nature, right? And whether it's a text format, with it's a written or a audio format, this is video format, these are all predominant. This data, like all data, contains power to know your customers better, power to increase efficiency, and power to scale. Now, however, because of its unstructured format, it is much harder to leverage, and that is why NLP is an exploding field right now, right? Why? So you have seen that a lot of these positions which are open right now specifically target individuals who are very good in NLP, right? So my predominant area of work is NLP right now. I'm working for 4.5 years into NLP extensively. Okay. And we have to go through all set of traditional approaches and um, deep learning based approach. And the beauty about NLP is that it is so complex, right? Forget about any traditional machine learning algorithms. NLP is so critical in today's world that deep learning models are also not able to get through 90% accuracy. So we have to understand that it is so complex that traditional machine learning algorithms almost fail in solving today's real life problems like translation, like extracting entities from data, doing abstractive summarization and all, right? And it might be helpful for 5 or 10 odd scenarios where you can use traditional machine learning algorithms, where that the data is natural language, but it is very structured. For example, a news article, it is very structured because of the person who writes these news articles or blogs, right? Or individuals who are professionals, TV actors, or um, news anchors, right? They follow a certain script and they deliver the content. So in that case, traditional machine learning algorithms will be enough. But if you see the streaming applications, like the way we tweet, right? Because we are limited to use the number of words. The way we tweet can, we at times tweak the meaning of that particular tweak, and we write certain words just to make sure that these are shortened enough, right? Um, but they are very, very tough to decode, right? So this is what we want to make sure that NLP is an exploding field right now, because you have a lot of data, right? And businesses are in a race to be the first in industry to unlock the potential of their unstructured data. So if you see a data science team, an NLP developer or an NLP researcher or a text analytics team is very much different from a traditional machine learning or a data science team. They might reside within the same umbrella, but they are dedicated towards more on research projects, right? If you want to know more about NLP, you can obviously come to me, and then we can work together. Okay, so next is, what do you know about NLP, and what do you think are the applications of NLP? Now, what is the NLP? NLP is basically a, a way in which we you know directly communicate with the human, or directly represent the human language through artificial networks. All right, so there is no computer coding required for you to do that. Nowadays you see the chat applications which are present, the bots which are present, right? Telecommunication companies are using bots, insurance companies are using bots, and it is widely spread across all domains and businesses within the data science community, and business units as well. So NLP is a field of artificial intelligence that is concerned with the interactions between computers and human languages, right? It basically uses the computers to process and analyze large amount of natural language data. So now you can understand that NLP is something, or a mechanism which particularly handles human language. Right now what is happening is every company has deployed their own bot, right? And these bots are capable of answering your questions. So the very basic questions like, um, I have internet issues, right? Once you type in the bot has the answers, because we have programmed the bot, uh, because 90% of the customers have the same set of queries. If you are working for a telecom company, they will have probably, my network is very slow, or my internet is not working, right? I'm not getting my bill on the email address, right? So these are the set of questions which 90% of the users ask. And then you have 10% of questions which is very specific and cannot be answered through a bot. So now you can understand that 90% of the entire traffic has been automated, and only for 10% they are deploying, or they have the field agents, or rather the customer service agents, who are basically helping the client, the customers with any sort of problem solving, right? So NLP is something which process the natural languages, right? And talks to a human just like a human interacts with each other. So artificial intelligence model will interact with the human. Okay, and there is no computer science layer involved, so you don't see codes running on your Anaconda or your command prompt in the background, right? So this is what an NLP process is. Now NLP is nothing but you know a process of natural language understanding and natural language generation. Okay, you might have heard natural language processing, but these two parts are very critical. One is the natural language understanding, and the other one is the natural language generation. We call it NLU and NLG, right? The most complex part of NLP is extracting meaning from a natural language. Now, decoding a natural language is very difficult. Say, for example, if I'm the CEO of an organization and I deliver a content or deliver a session on a particular day, and if it says 1 hour long, you might see analysts who are just sitting in the front and writing or taking notes from my speech delivery. Now, this type of analysis which they do is called extracting meaning from the data or from the text or the language. Now, how can you extract the meaning? There are human layer of understanding of emotions and words and everything, but NLP models which we have created right now, they cannot extract meaning from any speech or any corpus effectively, right? But however, state of the art models are getting extremely good even at this, meaning businesses can process more and more unstructured data. So you might process a content which was delivered by me, right? Or a session delivered by me, and you can say, okay, I have talked about lawsuits. I have talked about, innovation in India. I have talked about startup culture in Bangalore, right? So these are the keyword extractions which we can do effectively through NLP. That's not a problem. We can do that. But extracting the meaning uh, from the entire corpus is something which is difficult. Now, state of the art models, when I say we have Hugging Face models which are right now present, they are state of the art models and they're extremely good with extracting the meaning, but they are not as effective that they can be deployed to real world scenarios, right? As I said, state of the art models refer to the highest level of general development achieved at a particular time. For instance, state of the model art model is NLP or sorry, BERT or transformers, or as I said, Hugging Face models. These are all your state of the art because they have the highest level of development. Okay. Now coming to what is the difference between NLU and NLG, right? Natural language understanding is actually the way you understand the data, right? And if I just explain you with an example, we have summarization. What is summarization? Say, for example, as I said, mm, uh, my entire 2.5 hours or 3 hours of delivery today, or the class which we'll do today, you might create create a summary out of it, right? And okay, Alankar sir has talked about these points, okay, and if someone has missed the class, they can just go through these points one by one, right? And they can research about it. But summarization can also be of two types. One is the extractive summarization, where you just extract certain keywords from your corpus and create a summary out of it. And the next one is abstractive text summarization. It means you extract the keywords and you create or rephrase the entire, words or sentences so that it can deliver effective meaning. Now, if I give an example of extractive summarization, Peter and Elizabeth took a taxi to attend the night party in the city. While in the party, Elizabeth collapsed and was rushed to the hospital. Now you understand the source text. I don't think you have any doubt. But when I do an extractive summarization, and this is a real answer, okay, real explanation. So if you go through my NLP courses, you will get through this all along. Now, the extractive summarization will be Peter and Elizabeth attend party city, Elizabeth rushed hospital. So you can see the meaning of it is somewhat clear that, Peter and Elizabeth attended a party in the city and Elizabeth was rushed to the hospital. Okay, it delivers the summary, but you can see it does not carries the grammar of the English language effectively, right? This is extractive summarization where you just extract and you summarize the data. Okay, and next is your abstractive summarization where you create an abstract of your summary. Now the same source text, Peter and Elizabeth took a taxi to attend the night party in the city. While in the party, Elizabeth collapsed and was rushed to the hospital. And the summary says Elizabeth was hospitalized after attending a party with Peter. A, a way better, grammatically correct syntax and an effective syntax, right, with abstractive summarization. And this is what I'm trying to say is natural language generation is something which is difficult for researchers all around the globe, because it carries effective meaning to the data. And I will be very much open to you that in my day-to-day task as well in my organization, I have to dedicate 50 to 60% of my task in research, because I am working with NLP, and NLP is something which requires a lot of brainstorming and understanding of different aspects of we call it syntactic as semantic analysis of text data. Okay, so now you understand the different types of NLP. One is the NLU and NLG, and hope if they ask you any question related to that, you will be able to answer it. And I will uh, request you all to go through these slides again and again if you go through a very big organization's interview, and make sure that if it is mentioned that you will be tested on NLP or any of the or any of the basic understanding of these um, topics, you go through these slides effectively. Okay. Next is the application of natural language processing. Now, sentiment analysis, speech recognition, chatbots, machine translation are all applications of machine learning processing or natural language processing, right? Next is auto completing texts, which we have already seen in Gmail. Spell checking we have already seen in Word, Microsoft Word, or Gmail, or any other tools. We have keyword search, which is very effective in any research based company or project. And next is your advertisement matching, where we match your search in Google from the available list of advertisement which we have as part of promotion. Okay, next is your automatic summarization, which you have seen that automatic summarization is again abstractive and extractive. um, uh, there are a lot of tools and products which are using automatic summarization. Next is spam detection. Gmail is a very effective example. Text generation, when we create new text based on whatever content is present. And next is the question answering questions. Okay, if you have any specific question, we'll be able to answer it through chatbots. Right? Now we'll see some case examples of NLP in practice, how this works. So now a lot of these companies have implemented NLP based algorithms, and they were able to save a lot of time as well as budget after deploying these systems. Now, Port of Rotterdam has actually created a NLP based model which basically parses documents and extract product related information from them at 97% accuracy. Okay, and this effectively helped them to reduce the time spent on processing documents by 98% and reduce shipping errors by 6% and save $4 million every year. Okay, so document analysis model is very common nowadays in any legal firm or any big four organization where they audit a lot of documents from clients. So they use a lot of these NLP based models for their analysis. Next is your Autodesk, which is again a chatbot. Now Autodesk chatbot AVA carries out over 100,000 customer conversations per month. And this is not only with Autodesk, with other organizations as well. And this has allowed Autodesk to improve their response times by 99% from 38 hours to 5.4 minutes, right? So they are effectively able to answer their customers with any type of queries or conversations. Obviously you can understand that if it's a more manual process, your agent might be busy with some other customer, and there will be a lot of people in the queue, right? And it becomes a challenge because now you are expanding your market like anything, and you have to uh, have more service agents for your customers. And this is a very effective strategy where you are almost improving your response time by 99%. Now, what is the outcome? Outcome is that the replacing the human customer staff, which cost the company anywhere from 15 to $200 per query, is in time used with AVA also means that each query now costs less than $1. So if some guys ask me questions like, but what about the jobs which went out? What about the people who were sacked? So we have to effectively understand this is a continuously evolving market, continuously evolving organizations, and with time we have to also find out if there is a better way of delivering solutions. Might be after 10 years we don't have to write any code, because all of it can be done through drag and drop, and a little customization will help. Might be might be the case, right? So it will also open new opportunities. If one door closes, it will open new opportunities for you. For example, if I just give you an example of my work, my wife who's working in JP Morgan, there is one lady in her team, who was a who was into voice processing, right? BPOs and all, from JP Morgan for the past 10 years or so. And then the organization upskilled her, that particular lady, and then she's working in a risk department right now. So this is how new opportunities come, and you have to effectively upskill yourself every year or so, to make sure that you are in the race. Next is the JP Morgan Chase document review. Okay, talking about JP Morgan, here's JP Morgan. So JP Morgan used to employ an army of lawyers and loan officers to review legal documents amounting to 360,000 hours of work annually. Their NLP system called COIN, which is contract intelligence, does the same work, right? But it does it in seconds, providing huge savings and preventing clerical errors, a leading cause of loan servicing mistakes. Right? Now you understand what is the use of NLP in JP Morgan. So all these organizations are basically investment banks, and they have to work with a lot of their clients. They have their equity markets, they have their hedge funds and mutual funds, they have their credit default swaps. If you have seen the movie, um,
The Big Short.
The Big Short, thank you for that. If you have seen The Big Short, you will understand what is a credit default swap, and how these giant organizations basically manipulated the entire market with the bubble. They have their AAA rated bonds, which they exchange through credit default swaps to make sure that they will be able to counter any type of risk. So that's another discussion which I am currently working on to create one Udemy course. But you have to understand that all these organizations are basically working with a lot of these clients, and whenever you start working with a client, you have legal documents, and you have to process this every day, right? So next up is YouTube. We all know that content mentoring is there, where YouTube as well as other large social media networks are distributing or broadcasting their content to everyone, right? And this might be violent or illegal content by employing illegal content. So they have to initially they used to have a team who used to scrutiny these contents. Okay, whenever it was flagged to them that it is inappropriate content. And this was actually a temporary measure while the technology catches up, because they were not able to create that type of model that time, that it can automatically detect any type of copyright issues, or any type of illegal content, or violent, or child abuse. Now, in the first 6 months after YouTube started using NLP to analyze potentially violent and extremist content, the system reviewed and flagged content that would have taken 180,000 people working 40 hours a week to assess. Okay, obviously, if they would not have deployed these NLP based solution, it was impossible to review it. And this not only saved the company millions of dollars and improved their reputation, it also spared people from viewing horrific content. Now you understand I will share this deck with you. If you want to read more about it, you can go through the link. Next is Lendo, which is again a credit assessment app, and there are a lot of credit assessment app right now in India. There are a lot of companies soon to be unicorn in India, which are working with all of these assessment, not only credit assessment, but all type of um, assessment. Now, Singapore-based software firm Lendo uses NLP to analyze the customer's social media, browsing history, and geolocation to understand their behavior and relationships, factors that are highly indicative of their credit worthiness, right? This has helped banks and micro lenders verify customers' identities and assess risk, which allowed them to safely provide loans to 5 million lenders across 15 countries, reaching customers they traditionally would not have access to. And I will also come through the challenges which these type of company face in terms of regulation. So as a data scientist, you cannot do anything and everything because you are a very powerful person when we are playing with the data. Okay, or your team is very powerful or your product is very powerful. And there are certain regulations which make sure that you are not using AI in such a way that it works against the data privacy or personal privacy of individuals. So in India, we are not much, inclined towards personal privacy. What is privacy? We don't know about it. But European countries and American countries, American region, they are very much keen on following these type of regulations. And you might have seen what happened with Zuckerberg a few years back in US Senate. Next is Allocate, which is a sentiment analysis tool, which understands, how your customer feel about your brand, is, incredibly powerful and allows you to adjust your sales and marketing strategy. Also known as opinion mining, sentiment analysis algorithms use NLP to analyze social media, news and blogs, making it as either positive, negative, or neutral. A large unnamed European retailer looking to increase customer loyalty achieved 30% revenue increase with 12 months of deploying such a solution. I just read through the slide because it is very common right now that all of these companies are using sentiment analysis, right? Next example is SKAI, which has developed solutions for analyzing customer feedback for an international game developer and publisher. With over 60 million registered players providing feedback in various forms across multiple platforms, SKI introduced an NLP system to process all the incoming data. The successful integration of the system resulted in 95% reduction in cost and time spent, with significant improvement in the quality of processed data within months of deployment. So this is another aspect of customer feedback analysis. Previous one was sentiment analysis. It can be very generic, but whenever you have a customer feedback analysis, all of these companies which you see, are using these type of products. Okay, say for example, Zomato or Swiggy, some of them have created their in-house system, but at times, I basically feel that when I work in my organization, so I get certain direction from my leadership that whether it's worth to buy a product or to develop a product, right? If something which is very uh, confidential, which is proprietary to us, we should create our own solution. And if it is not, which is a very simple solution, would unnecessarily required a lot of budget to be allocated, we just buy a product or take subscription of a product. We have a lot of products which we are using in the data science and machine learning space, which does small tasks for us, and it's not worth spending a lot of these um, resources and times in any organization, for any organization, on these small tasks. Rather, we can do it leveraging other third-party applications. Now, all of these organizations want to also keep their data science team as confined, as small as possible, because this is a very, innovative um, um, leg within an organization, which does a lot of research in your organization. And one of the major disadvantage of any team is that as it expands to left, right, and center, it might be very difficult to move any product. It becomes it's like a elephant problem, right? It's very difficult to move around with an elephant. Okay, so they want to confine their team as small as possible. Obviously, with the number of products, if you have 10 products or 20 products, you have to have your uh, big data science team. I want what I want to say is the proportion of your products or application which supports machine learning to the number of people you have, resourced in your organization. Now, next comes what is computer vision. Okay, we'll go through computer vision because that is also part of your curriculum. We'll go through the applications of computer vision now, and we will implement what we have left in the last class using PyTorch or TensorFlow or Keras, whatever it is. We'll go through what is the difference between all three of them and when to use what or which is more effective nowadays. All right. What is computer vision and what are the common applications of computer vision in our day-to-day lives? Now, computer vision is a field of AI that trains machine to understand and interpret the visual world. We have also already seen this in CNN class where we talked about CNN. This may sound futuristic, but CV or computer vision has been around, since 1950s. The barcode scanner is one of the early example of CV in use. So, for those who are in India, you might have seen these barcode readers, scanners way back in American television series or, movies. But it came to India after some time, but barcode scanner is something which is very effective nowadays and almost all businesses use barcode scanner. Now, what are the applications of computer vision? The application of computer vision can be many. One is, image classification, where you identify and categorize your images based on what you have, right? Next is your object detection, where you identify important parts of an image, like uh, whether you have detecting pedestrian detection or face detection or number of plate recognition, oil spills, etc. You basically detect any object. Next is image segmentation, where you partition an image into multiple regions which can be examined. Nowadays, Zoom and Teams can now blur out the background, right? So it basically segments your background with your image, right? Next is your object tracking, where you monitor the movement. Say, for example, Tesla car, very effective nowadays, which helps in preventing collision, tracking pedestrian routes and monitoring car speeds, all of that, right? Next is image generation, where you can generate an image which enables you to generate a 3D image from a 2D image, right? Nowadays, Google Maps is one sub example. CGI, which you see nowadays in movies, very effective right now, right? So these are all image generation. Next is your edge detection, where you detect the image effectively. When you upload a picture over Facebook, you can automatically see the image and recognize facial features like your camera focus and identify the number of OCR. Very effectively, we can scan any handwritten code or any report to find out optical character recognition. Like, if you want to read a manual transcript study or taking notes and you want to for example, if you use an iPhone nowadays, I'm not sure about Android. If it might be present in some mobiles, if you use a iPhone and if you just take an picture of a handwritten note or something, you can just copy that particular um, uh, part of the text, right, or a phone number, and then paste it over your uh, phone application. So this is how the OCR works in all of these products. Yes, that's right. So Google Lens is there. It also effectively helps you to find out that particular picture over the net or internet. So it finds similar type of um, images from the web. So for example, if I take a picture of a plant, right, through Google Lens, you can then just scroll down and you will see what are the similar results you can get through the web. And even if you don't know the name of that particular plant or a tree, Google will help you to find out, right? Next is your feature matching. It finds similar characteristics and group them together. For example, Google Photos nowadays, you can see people who are in your in your photo library, they are being grouped together. So for example, if my friend or my mother, uh, who is part of lot many images, will all be grouped together, right? And we can create albums and we can share it with similar people. Now, why is it useful, particularly computer vision? Now imagine you are the CEO of a company that wholesales tomatoes to grocery stores. Okay, you designate 3 workers to quality check the tomatoes on a conveyor belt, remove any unripe or rotten fruit. Is this manual process efficient, and why? Can someone answer? Is the manual process of employing a person or employing 3 workers to quality check the tomatoes on a conveyor belt is effective?
No,
No, right? Why so?
because like uh, in on a conveyor belt, human even if we are putting like 2 3 humans on the same
Mhm,
conveyor belt
mhm,
for different checks,
mhm.
they still might not be able to do it keeping up with the speed of
Right,
the conveyor belt. Sometimes sometimes let's say we have uh, a lot of tomatoes, and
right,
we have to process in shorter time. That time the failure rate by humans might be high, but instead if we are using some computer vision system, it will be very quick to identify even very small defects in the tomatoes,
right,
and we can always increase the speed.
right. And so well put through. So what is your solution to this process? Can you give some solution so that you can remove the 3 workers and have certain solution, and it will effectively reduce down your time as well as your cost which is incurred.
Right. So, like I said, we can train a computer vision model,
Mm-hmm.
preferably probably a neural network,
Mm-hmm.
and we can give like top view, side view image of a tomato to
Right,
that computer vision model, and then it can. Uh, I mean, we'll train it on good tomatoes and bad tomatoes, how good and
right.
bad tomatoes look, and that way it can be trained and it can be used in the real life.
That's right. That's right. Thank you, Bhargav. And so that he's uh, put down very effectively, what we'll do. Time employees, which is the cost involved, and also human workers will make mistakes. Obviously, even if I work there or you work there, we will make mistakes. We are slower than computers when carrying out repetitive tasks, because we at time don't like redundant tasks, which is too repetitive. Might get sick or take leaves days off, causing the process to break down. Will likely not find the work enjoyable, right? So this is what the problem with humans are. Now through computer vision we can effectively solve this. As Bhargav mentioned, that we will be able to train a model by gathering data, right? And we can install a camera in sorting room and letting the algorithm watch your workers actions. Okay, so you can effectively train your model to find out how your workers are sorting these, or removing these rotten tomatoes, right? Then you will label the data. You will collect images of tomatoes that has passed along the belt, will be classified as the good one, while the pictures of discarded fruit will be or discarded tomatoes will be classified as bad. A week of observation would be enough to train the algorithm to make autonomous decisions. All that remains is to install a mechanism that can automatically remove the bad tomatoes. Now you can understand that this is how we can train our model using computer vision. This is how our training data work. This is how our labeling data work. And if it is true for any scenario, whether it's image processing or NLP based model, doesn't matter. Okay, so a deep learning computer vision algorithm will help us. Now, what is the benefit of this approach? The benefit of this approach will be to minimize the costs, to reduce errors, increase processing speeds, right? And it will also have effective strategy in order to deal with employee absence, or sick days, or um, obliterates days of, of humans. And free human employees will be able to carry out more meaningful tasks, because as I said, redundant task might be good for a few days, but effectively these employees will not feel motivated to work, right? And these questions were actually asked by an organization. So I thought of having this scenario here. And this was asked um, in the company Harman. Okay, it's a Samsung company, and Harman asked this question to the campus hires. Okay, so obviously this is a very basic level of question, but obviously for those who will be fresher in the data science world, you might be asked this type of questions, and it might feel that these are very easy questions and I will be able to answer it. But believe me, when we are in interview, you will get so nervous that it becomes a challenge. So if you go through an interview, make sure that you have enough idea of these type of questions. Now let's look into some of the computer vision in practice. So Kanska, which is another company in USA, is a construction company. Okay, and they found that their workers walked an astonishing average of 6 miles per day. Now, using CV, Kanska tracked their movements and compared their activity. This action enabled the company to optimize its operation and smartly position workers and resources. The project saved each workers 2 miles of walking per day, which boosted their productivity by 12%. When I say walking, it's actually the amount of walking they have to do in order to do construction, right? They were not effectively placed, because in construction also you have certain hours of work dedicated to each of the tasks. Okay, so that it also doesn't becomes repetitive. Okay, so that's why they have to travel from one place to the other, because they are part of large airport building and large tech park building work. All right, next is Tesla. We all know self-driving cars need to be have a broad set of use cases nowadays. And Tesla, since 2016, have hardware that includes 8 cameras, allowing a vehicle to visualize its environment at centimeter precision. And this move seemed to mark Tesla's growth in revenue, which exploded by around 450% in the years following the announcement. Because it's one of the cars which is one of the most smartest in the world, and they are very fast with their rapid innovation. And self-driving car is something which they boast a lot about, because this is very effective in some of the American and North American, European and North American countries. Next is eBay. We all know eBay, which is an e-commerce giant. Not so popular now in India, but it's still present outside India. It basically improved the shopping experience of users and increased revenue. They used to upload photos of products you want to purchase on eBay, and use computer vision to analyze the picture and search its inventory of over 100 million items to find similar products. So this might feel a little layman nowadays, because we are much advanced nowadays. But these are some of the applications which eBay had in when they started using computer vision applications. And in 2019, global sales reached 3 trillion USD online. Next is Harvest CRW Robotics, where in Florida, 10 to 100,000, 11,000 acres of strawberries are handpicked each day, or each year, sorry. By 2024, the number of agriculture workers is predicted to decrease by 6%, making automation essential for this industry. Now they have developed a robot that uses CV to inspect strawberries, determine ripeness, right, and pick the fruit all in 8 seconds per plant. One machine can harvest 8 acres per day, the equivalent of 30 human workers. And you can see a lot of examples of these type of robots nowadays. But Harvest CRO had written a very good blog, and I took the example from there. Next is AI cure, which is again to, the problem was to increase the chance of making a successful recovery. Patients have to adhere to their prescribed medication, but around half of the patients do not take their medication as prescribed. I am included in that, sorry to say. And the solution is that AI Cure developed a smartphone CV software that can determine if a patient took the right medication at the right time and in the right quantity. Okay, obviously they have their own computer vision software for that. You have to upload certain um, pictures. And they achieved 95% adherence on initial samples, which will be significant aid to vulnerable and at-risk groups. Okay, we have cases where we have to talk to our elder or our parents to take medication on time, because they are at their stage of life where they are at their at risk group. Okay, and we have to make sure that we monitor them effectively. So instead of a human monitoring it, there is a software, AI Cure, which monitors them. Next is ROAF. Every year, 11 billion USD of recyclable packing is thrown away in the US alone. And even top performing countries like Switzerland, Australia, and Germany only recycle about half of their waste. This isn't just bad for the environment, it's also a colossal waste of time. Now, what they have created is they have created a fully automated solution, which basically is a sorting plant, and it takes the municipal wastes. And in Europe, in Norway in 2016, with the help of computer vision, they were able to sort these waste automatically. Now ROF's process sorts 40 tons of waste per hour, which serves 190,000 inhabitants and is up to 97% accurate. So there are municipalities who are working with these innovative companies to process this. I remember I worked on a freelance project some 3 years back with one of my close ex-colleagues, and I was working with so that my colleague was actually ex-colleague was working with the um, municipal corporation of Norway. Okay, one of the Nordics country, um, and their municipal corporations are actually monitoring the amount they have spent on their innovation. Okay, and they effectively track the companies where they have given contract and are floating trend tenders. So anything and everything is automated there, and it's a very good strategy where every municipality is empowered to take their own decision, and they are using not only this but a lot of artificially intelligent and um, uh, modern day innovative solutions. Okay, I took the example from there, from the database. Next is Cortexica, where businesses that use industrial machineries must consider workplace safety. An average company in the construction will experience 27 worker injuries per year. Almost half of these are due to human error, and astonishing 30% are due to worker not wearing protective gear. We see a lot of videos over YouTube, right? Where construction workers are working without even gloves or a helmet or proper boots. And this is part of, if one human error occurs, this will eventually make them paralyzed, right? Um, and for that, Cortexica CV solution, so our software solution, allows businesses to monitor the workplace and issue alerts whenever worker is not complying with safety rules. They predict that full adoption of their system could prevent 160,000 to 16,000 accidents, saving millions of a company. I remember I went to Gurgaon office of my organization, and there was um, this one device which was present, and it basically tracks whether the temperature of an individual, and also whether he or she has wear a mask or not. If not, it promptly asks you to wear a mask, and unless and until you wear a mask, it will not let you inside the campus. Okay, so this is the type of computer vision solution which you can have. All right. University of Zurich, where the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology had a problem where every year 15 million people worldwide suffer from strokes, and through mortality rates are and though mortality rates are low, it remains the leading cause of serious long-term disabilities in developed countries. What is the reason? Recovery is expensive, with US rehab services costing patients an average of 11,000 USD in the first year. Now, the solution which they provided is, they developed a CV software that monitors the coordination, you know, dexterity, and reflex recovery, reducing the need for expensive medical services. An initial test shows full recovery, meaning that implementation of the software could improve the lives of millions of affected people. All right. Now, with that, we will, okay. Oh, okay. Yes, I actually have seen this example, I believe, in Instagram or YouTube video, which you have just mentioned, that you have to smile, right, in order to enter the office. And yeah, that might work. I'm not sure whether it will work here. Um, People in Bangalore, if they go to office in a normal, COVID-free time, they will probably not smile when they enter office, because you have to struggle for an hour and a half to reach office. And I'm hopeful that it's same all over big cities. Okay, let's start. Which of the below is an example of structured data? Example of structured data. This is very easy. Right, so it's databases. Next question. Which of the below is not an NLP application? Very easy. This is just an icebreaker. Oh, something wrong. Sorry. So answer will be face recognition. All right. Moving on to the next one. Barcode scanner is an example of. Very easy. It's an example of computer vision, right? XML is an example of. XML is the file type. Okay. Just like we have HTML or JSON or Avro or Parquet. It's an example of semi-structured data. Structured data is only, Excel files and spreadsheets and databases. All right, coming to the last one. What is NLP? The most easy question. NLP is nothing but interaction between humans and language computers. Right, so we'll move on to our next section where we'll talk about a product. All right, before that, allow me 1 second. All right, now Refinitiv is a company that provides an open technology solution for financial market professionals, providing access to industry leading data, insights, and exclusive and trusted news. The product is used by financial professionals with access to market data, analytics, and messaging tools. Okay, so Refinitiv is a product, or Refinitiv is a company which provides all type of data to you. So it is more related to, say, for example, money control in India, right? So this is what a Refinitiv is. Okay, and you have been hired by Refinitiv as a data scientist. Okay, just a second. You have been hired by Refinitiv as a data scientist who have to work in collaboration with a data science team to help them expand their services to create NLP based solutions for automatically analyzing quarterly reports for financial professionals. Okay, this NLP solution would leverage machine learning to scan the earning report and return key highlights of the quarterly earnings to the user. Okay, so if I give you an example of a Refinitiv, it's still loading. Allow me a second. I will open an earnings report for you. Okay. Say for example, this is the earnings report. Okay, this is the earnings report. This is how it looks like. Okay, this is for a company. This is for ABB Limited. Okay, you might have heard about ABB Limited. This is one organization, and this is how the entire earnings report looks like. So who are the corporate participants who joined the conference, be it the CEO, the head of the information team, the executive VP and the CFO. Okay, who were the corporate side of people who deliver the earnings report. And then on the other side where journalists and people from different research divisions, maybe from Merrill Lynch, from Wells Fargo, from JP Morgan, from UBS investment banks, because Citigroup, Barclays, so these type of companies are very interested in the earnings report of organizations because they give ratings, they work on investments and all of that, right? So they will ask a lot of questions to these folks. Then this is the entire transcript of the presentation. So first operator says, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the ABB Q1 2020 results, and so on. And then it will start with the head of a particular department of the CEO or CFO. So it might be different for different companies. Okay, and this is the transcript, the entire transcript, which you can see whatever they have delivered, looking through the slides, or just impromptu discussion. And then it is followed by a question and answer session, right? In the question and answer session, there are people from different companies. Say for example, this guy from UBS investment is asking a question, and then the CEO is answering. Okay, and then again, CEO answers, and then to that, Timo wants to, add his own opinion, the VP and the CFO, right? And this is how it goes on. So this is an interactive session. Okay. And these type of reports are actually present in companies like uh, products like this, which is the definitive icon. Say for example, if I just type in ABB, right? So you can go to ABB and it will give you the entire financial report of that particular organization. So be it, the news and the pricing and the charts and the ESG information, everything and everything about the financial aspect of the company, right? So you can go to different news and research, price and charts, estimates. So for those who are interested in, stock markets, and also you might have also done some analysis, and you might also read some report before investing in a particular company. um, so this is all about refinitiv. So what it says, if I go back to my slides, it says Refinitiv is a company which provides, financial open technology solutions for financial market professionals. Okay, it has insights and exclusive trusted news, and this is used by financial professionals. Okay, I personally use it for my own, creating my analysis and, text NLP based solution for different reports which they publish. Okay. And imagine, you have to just imagine that you have been hired as a data scientist who have to work in collaboration with the data science team to help them expand their services to create NLP based solutions for automatically analyzing the quarterly earnings report for financial professionals. Okay. And you will be leveraging NLP solution using machine learning to scan through the earnings report. So you have to basically scan through these reports. Okay, this is the report you have to scan through. Okay, and from there you have to return the insights or the key highlights of the quarterly earnings. Right, I hope you understood what is refinitiv and what is the earnings call transcript. Okay, very important if you want to, you know deliver effective communication of your, product or whatever you have done. This class is very, very, very important. Now this is how refinitiv looks. I've already, shown you in the application itself. Okay, but here is the screenshot which you can refer whenever you want. Okay, and what is the earnings call? I have already talked about. Earnings call is a teleconference or a webcast in which public company discusses the financial results of a reporting period. Analysts then convert this audio transcript to text in a particular format, and we refer to it as earnings call transcript or report. Now, the good thing about an earnings call transcript form, Refinitiv or any other product, is that it is it is of the same format. Okay, if I can give you an example, say for example, I opened ABB for you, and I want to open Airbus for you. Okay, and if you look into this, it has the same format. See the corporate participants and the conference participants. And if I go to my ABB uh, PDF, you'll see these formats are completely same. So the headers which you see, corporate participants and corporate con participants and presentations and whatnot. Okay, so these are exactly similar. So you can see these are structured documents. So you, even if you write uh, you know a function to parse this data from PDF, it will work effectively for all the other PDFs. Okay, so this is how you will basically use the PDF to extract your, key highlights. So what is the earnings call? Earnings call is nothing but the audio transcript. And for those who are having some challenges, um, which project to mention in my resume, you can obviously take this as an example. Okay, and then you can go along. And we will also do some real life projects where you will see, similar type of layouts of PPT presentations and codes which will be working together. Okay, and you can showcase this in your resume. Okay, and this is how earnings call transcript looks like. Okay, this is a sample from Refinitiv. Now, what type of information can be gathered, right? What type of information we can gather from the earnings report? It can be, joint ventures or strategic alliances or business deals about, mergers and acquisitions. So all these companies, big companies, always talk about, what type of acquisitions they have done, what type of mergers they are part of. If there is any officer change, like the CEO is stepping out, and then a new CFO has been hired, and then the CFO has retired or something. So these type of officer changes information, divestitures, equity investments, and bankruptcy, and any type of corporate litigation which is going around. Okay, all these information will be present in the earnings report. Now, can you tell me how would you approach the problem? What would be your data strategy? So if any one of you can answer that, if you are given a task to pass these um, uh, reports, okay, take a wild guess, not a problem, okay, so there is no bad answers. Take a wild guess, how will you first start with the process? Anyone?
But what is the objective? Like when we say parsing, what
Hmm.
kind of data we want to get and what is the objective?
Right, so for that, what would be your strategy? Like, how would you gather the data? Any?
So, what do we have? Like we have the report that you showed, or
Right,
okay.
just the report. So if you just have the report, how would you start with the process? So say for example, you just hired for this new process, what would be your approach? Anyone? You can use the chat window as well.
So first of all, we can look for certain keywords that what we are
Mm.
interested in.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I want to know that how much profit the company made. So
Mm.
wherever the profit is mentioned in either question or answer,
Mm.
I
Mm.
extract those sentences or those paragraphs or those sentences only, and
Mm.
I see from them what is the data that I can extract.
Mm.
So that will give me an idea how well company is doing, and if I want to see if there is some negative thing, then there will be certain keywords for that, like market crash or customer attrition, whatever things like that, and that way I will know how if something is going wrong, and yeah, that way I can determine the overall performance of the company.
Mm. Okay. Okay. Yes, that's a good approach. Um, so yes, so we have to effectively design our data strategy, and Bhargav, whatever you have mentioned is part of the strategy which we'll talk about. But before that, we will, you know, basically source the data from somewhere. And as a data scientist, you should ask yourself and the data teams, what are the best ways to collect the data? Because the only these many reports will not help. Say for example, if you look into this, you have only 39 reports, so you cannot create a full-fledged NLP algorithm or a model with only just 39 reports. So what you need to do is, you need to find the best way to collect the data, and we have to also question ourselves whether enough data is available to build the NLP product. Do we need to negotiate contracts with external parties about acquiring data? Say for example, if I use the Refinitiv application and it only limits me to download 200 reports a month, then that might be a problem, right? So we have to also negotiate contracts with external parties about acquiring data. Now, you may not be directly involved in this process, but you have to understand that this is how the entire product structure works. Okay, and these are the type of works product managers and data scientists do in order to work together, right? So for example, the product owner or the product manager might come to you and say, okay boss, can you just check what is the limit of the data download? Okay, you can just run a query to find out if the application is throwing any error, right? If you download more than 200 reports. Okay, now the question you should ask yourself is, Have I created a step-by-step list of instruction for the data management team? Because eventually you will be, sourcing the data in order to build your model. So as a data scientist, if you're working in the capacity of individual contributor or in a team, and you are part of the team, you should ask these right questions to either your senior data scientist or your product manager or the data engineering leads, right? Whether the data is available. I want this type of data, whether this data is available, because as I said, 60% of the entire model is, you know, is on the data. And I will show you the architecture where you will see that the machine learning code is probably 10% or 5% of the entire architecture. Okay, so these are the type of questions you should ask yourself. All right, and what type of data you would be asked whenever you try to, you know, create a data science model. So the question which your leadership will ask you is, what kind of data will place our organization at a unique advantage against our competitors? Is there any proprietary data that is unique part of our organization and cannot be found anywhere else? So since this all machine learning and AI world is all about data, so the 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 one who has the access of the data better or clean data is going to, rule this world of AI and data science. You can see many examples: Facebook, Instagram, Netflix. If new company wants to come into, this field, they might have to go through many things now because they are lagging behind the data. Okay, so you have to find out whether what type of data should be, fetched, so that you have already you have fetched some data from the European market or the American market, but that will be too biased towards that type of market, right? You have to find data from, say, Asia Pacific, from EMEA, from, South America and all. And now when I say proprietary data, the data which is very proprietary to your organization. Say, for example, your organization creates and curates some data, okay, and no other company does that. Okay, so that will put you at a unique spot. For example, Netflix gives a very good recommendation if you compare with any other application. Why? Because Netflix has a huge pool of data which is proprietary. They have their own data for years and years now. Okay, next is your data strategy. As a data scientist, you should focus on innovation, how to innovate your product constantly, how your innovation can bring in revenue, right? The if you see any product, it is evolving day by day, and it is evolving based on, either uh, through machine learning models or AI models, or through, you better UI enhancement or something like that. It might give you good customer feel, right? It will give you more time in the app. Okay, imagine if Instagram was, very much, it used to lag a lot. It didn't give you the right content in the recommendation, nobody would use it, right? Now you have to also constantly look out for exploring more and more data, right? Netflix, if you uh, take an example of Netflix or Hotstar or whatever, Facebook, right? They're exploring more and more data, right? They're acquiring more data every day from customers. So as a data team or a data engineering team who, procures data for you, they have to run the business. And what do you mean by running the business? It means they have to bring in more data, right? They have to optimize the entire process so that you get better clean data. And now as a data scientist, you should look into how can you find more insights and innovation and grow your business. So this is your data strategy from a data science perspective. Okay, now how could you source the data? Now data can be collected from many methods. For example, open data, for example, data which is already available in the market or in the web, right? You can write certain Python beautiful soup queries to fetch data, which is open data. Then company data, which is already residing in your database. So if you just take an example of a repetitive and earnings call, which we are talking about right now, you might have certain data from publicly available, company websites. You can get the data from there. You can find it from, your company databases, which is your proprietary data. Now you can also crowdsource your label data. Say for example, if already some data is been, created and has been tagged, you can crowdsource it. You can add new feature to your data. As I said, you can add new columns to your data, whether it is North American company or it is a European company or it is um, Southeast Asian company, and you can obviously purchase the data. Okay. Now, as you go down, the difficulty of the data increases. Why? Purchasing a data is, having a lot of legal requirements, and you have to comply by the company's policy and everything. Now, where and how will you think the data can be stored? So anyone can take a wild guess. Once I fetch these data from, different sources, where do I store this data? Keep in mind, this is a unstructured PDF data or, Word file or whatever it is. Where can I store this data? Right. We have to store this data in data lake, right? Because since it's a unstructured data, you cannot store this in a database, because database is ideally for, structured type of data. Okay, where you have rows and columns. Now data lakes are centralized, which centralizes all the data in one place instead in multiple databases. But unlike water warehouse, it is not centralized for one particular purpose. So in interview, they might ask you what is a data lake. So be ready to answer these questions. It is a pool of raw data with unstructured, unfiltered data, not yet processed for any other purpose. So you just are fetching the data from a particular source and basically saving it in your data lake. So data lake has the raw data, the PDF files will be there. The easiest way to perform variety of analysis, training and queries. Since all your data will be present in a single source or a single place, right? It is very easy to train your model and, you know, write queries and do analysis, because obviously you understand that if you fetch data from 10 different databases, the response time of each database will be different, right? And it might be slow, and since they are traditional, they are not no efficient, not efficient with, large unstructured or semi-structured data processing. Okay, so data lakes are centralized data sources, right? Or data platforms which have one place instead of multiple databases. Just a second. All right, now that we know what is a data lake, now how will we store the data from the earnings report to a structured format? Now that data lakes can keep unfiltered, unstructured data, how will you store this data? Now from the data lake, the data lake will have these PDFs, right? You will basically write a query in any of these programming languages, be it Java or Python or R or PySpark. So I personally write queries in Python. So you can write your own set of Python queries, which will transform your data from a PDF file like this, right, to a data set like this. Okay, and obviously now you can understand we are converting a unstructured data to a structured data. Very important from a interview perspective, where they will ask you this type of questions. Okay, if you obviously go for a better company or product based company. Okay, and this will be also reviewed by your product manager, because he's the one who, manages the entire product. Okay, so you will transform your unstructured data to a structured data. If I can give you an example, right? So this is how your entire, data from a PDF file, which basically looks like this. Okay, can be transformed to a Excel based tabular structure. See, this is how you will see the company name, the transcript, the participant type, who was the participant, and what was the designation of that particular participant, and what was he saying, right? No, this is not named entity recognition right now. Okay, I'm not recognizing the named entity here. Okay, I am basically parsing the entire PDF. Okay, a PDF which looks like this. I am parsing it. All these uh, headers which you see goes to you know these column name. Okay, and the respective data which is present inside it, okay, goes to the column. All right, so this is not named entity recognition, this is just parsing the data. Yes, this is based on header. Okay, and um, this is actually a critical part of your entire product, where you have to have your data well structured so that you can run analysis. Now if you have done any Kaggle challenge, or you have worked with any of the sentiment analysis, or any of the NLP based tasks, you will obviously understand that whenever the raw data is given to you in any of these challenges, or in any of the courses, you will see they will give you a Excel file. So the challenge or the problem itself starts with the Excel file, but that is not the case. Eventually in the industry, you have to create your own data set, right, from the raw data. Okay, so you have to basically pass this PDF to an Excel based format. Okay, this is how things work in industry. Okay, so now you understand that you can parse your entire PDF into a Excel based format. So now you can understand the entire PDF is being transformed to um, some 411 rows of data, and each of these rows have transcript of these individual person. Okay, so you can find out what the CEO is saying, what the analyst is saying, and whatnot. Okay, whether the analysts are asking the right set of questions. Okay, because earning transcript are two-way communication, so you can get a lot of information. If it is a one-way communication, you might not get information about, say obviously a company will not disclose anything about litigation, or what is the corporate lawsuits which are going on you. Have you any opinion, do you have any opinion on it, or what is the status? Because as a shareholder or the investor in a company, you should know where your company, where have you invested your money, whether the company is going the right direction. So these research analysts will ask these questions, right? So what about the lawsuits? What about regulatory filings? You have this much of um, tax pending, or you have these court cases which are going on. So they will answer questions, and based on that you can understand the sentiment of the management, whether they are positive about it, negative about it, and so on. Okay, now how much data is needed if you want to get started with a project? So obviously if you want to start a big project like this, okay, you cannot start with 10,000 companies or 20,000 companies, and then you create your entire data pipeline and everything, and then at the end you get to know that this problem is cannot be solved, right? This will be scrapped. So you understand the amount of loss your company will bear for that, the amount of energy and everything, right? So how much data is needed? So can you take a lucky guess for how many companies should we start with? Any lucky guess? Use the chat window. What do you think? If one company gives you some 411 rows, say for example on average, how many rows is enough to start with an NLP based process? Gurpreet says 1K. Okay, anyone else? Depends. Mayank says depends. That's a very diplomatic answer. Anyone else? Come on, guys. I need some number. How many PDFs should we start with? How many companies should we start with? Bhargav says 500 to 700. Okay. Guys, I want you to take a guess. This is all guess. Everyone is guessing. Can you just take a guess? How many companies should we start with? Hari, Pratiksha, Priyanshu, Satish. Mayank says minimum 2. Okay. Satish says 5. Okay. Hari says 550 to 100. Good, good. Okay. And anyone else? Bang on. Sukanya says 100. So ideally we should start with, based on the product, we should start with some 100 uh, news articles, sorry, PDFs. Why so? Okay, you might ask me the question, why so? Because if you want to create a solution around it, you should have ample amount of data. And if one PDF gives you some 400, you know, um, rows, you can identify that 10 will give you some 4,000 and 100 will give you some 40,000 records, right? 40K. And 40K is something which we can start off. Okay, because it can be stored easily to any of your databases. You don't even require a data lake for now, or any big data application. So you don't have to spend so much on resourcing and um, um, complex applications like Hadoop or Spark applications. Okay, because you are just starting to test, and this is what we call a minimum viable data. Okay, you all have heard about proof of concept or minimum viable product, right? If you go to any startup industry or you watch any shows related to startups, they will only talk about, we have pilot this, we have created a MVP or minimum viable product. So whenever you are working in a data model, okay, whenever you are working in a AI based model, you do not have a minimum viable product. You have a minimum viable data first to build a model with the least amount of data and data infrastructure as possible, because you don't want to spend. My personal experience is in 2.5 years, I have been working with 7 products and only 2 are into production. 5 of them are struggling to get fund, right? Because the management thinks that it is not worth spending money on it, right? 2 of them are into production and they are fetching us good revenues, right? So now you understand that why this is very important. So you should have minimum viable data, least amount of data, and the data infrastructure which is required. Okay, now how do you create a AI or machine learning MVD, or minimum viable data? How to store data from earnings report? Okay, so MVD is the smallest amount of data required to develop a potential AI product, rather than working with large data sets that take time to store, clean, and create pipeline for this minimum viable data. Simplifies the process by having data science team start off with the smallest amount of data possible. So I've just taken on an average 40,000 data. That's enough for me. And MVD is about leveraging methods that require very little data, and over time, when the data is collected from different sources, developing another model with the method that requires more than it. Okay, now hope you understood what is the MVD here. Now, as I said, we will start with respect to our problem, we'll start with 100 companies. The data should be random and chosen statistically. So it's not like you will fetch the data from um, um, you cannot just take some random data from American companies or European companies or top 100 companies for that matter. You will create some randomness in the data. So for example, if you have a pool of 20,000 companies, you will take random 100 companies. Okay, this will be very statistically important for you if you do some hypothesis around it. But for an NLP project like this, you don't have to create any NLP statistical models and you know hypothesis testing around it for now. Okay, so you start with a baseline model like random forest and support vector machine, etc., and with time try to build more models, build models that are more complex and require a huge amount of data like the neural networks. Okay, so obviously one thing which you have to understand that whenever you create models using traditional models like random forest and support vector machine, they eventually work very well with less amount of data. So data which is less than a million or 2 million, for example. So it will work like a charm. But as your data size increases, your model accuracy might be good, but it will not increase over time. So for example, if with 5 million records you are getting some 85% accuracy, with 10 million records also you will get some 85.2% accuracy. But because they are they lack that sense of neural networks which can work together uh, with large amount of data, it will be very complex for from a time and a space point of view. Okay, and this MVD will help you in creating a baseline for your AI ML performance. Okay, so that is what I'm saying, a baseline. For example, if your traditional machine learning models gives you 85% accuracy, your neural network better give you more than 85% accuracy, because you are spending a lot of uh, uh, resources on it. When I say resources, probably larger GPUs and CPUs, complex architectures in the background, which eventually cost you money. So if you are using a deep learning network and it is not giving you more than 85% accuracy, it's a futile effort. So AI MVD, or minimum viable data, will give you a starting point of your model. Now, our first part is done, where we identify the business problem, and second part is where we create what is the data all about and how much data should we take. We move to the third step, which is building the model. Now, building the machine learning model and training the model will have 3 points. Okay, so now that you have created your own model, uh, you have to find the average human level performance for a task. Say for example, if traditionally all these reading the PDFs and finding out key highlights about it was done by manual analyst, and today a lot of these organizations are doing it. Okay, and they did it with, say for example, 80% accuracy. Now if you create a machine learning model which works with 70% accuracy, nobody is going to buy your model. And even if you go to your senior manager saying that I've made a model which is 70% effective, even though it processes the data with within 1 minute or 2 minutes, as opposed to a manual analyst who reads through it and takes 5 or 6 hours, your model is not going to work because you are not reaching the human level performance for a task. If you are using a machine, you better be better than a human. Okay, so the first thing is you have to have a better performance than a human level performance. Next is your base model metric. So use the performance of your most simple modeling efforts, right, as a baseline metric to evaluate future models. So for example, you create a model using a random forest or XGBoost, and this gives you some 75% accuracy, and this is the best accuracy which you get through traditional machine learning models. So this should be the base of your metric, that any model which you create in future should be better than 75%. All right, next is your satisfying and optimizing metric. So you have to make sure that even if your error rate or your accuracy is better, but it's taking a lot of time to process the data, it is of no use, because your client will not wait for 5 minutes uh, so that your model will give you an output. No, it will not wait. Okay, so you have to give the best level of accuracy with a best level of processing time. So here you can see that you have an error rate of 5%, means you have accuracy of 95%, but it gives you a processing time of 1300 milliseconds. Not going to work. because if you work with huge pool of data, it will probably take minutes to process your data, right? Instead, model C works effectively where you have 93% accuracy or 7% error rate, but it processes the data in 90 milliseconds. So you have to have a balance of your satisficing and optimizing metric. So in interviews, they will ask you a question that based on what you have selected this model. So you have to mention these type of metrics, okay? Unless and until you don't mention this type of metric, they might say that you are a newbie, or you have just gone through some Kaggle course, Kaggle competition and some course, and you don't know about real world application. So use these type of keywords in order to convey your understanding. Okay. Next is your confusion metrics, where you look into confusion metrics and find the precision, recall, and F1 score, which we have already talked about. And you have to make sure that the above is uh, uh, is able to define your model in a correct way. Obviously, whenever you are looking into the accuracy level, you have to look through all of these performance metric. Okay, this has already been covered. I'm not going through the details right now. If you have any question, do let me know. We'll go through it. But since we are not going through a real model or a Python-based model right now, I'm not explaining it. Just an example of how the confusion matrix looks like and what is the precision, recall, and the F1 score. Right now, you created your model. Okay, your data will be split into three parts. One is the training model. The second is your development model or the validation data set, and the third is your test data set, where you test the data. Okay. Now your modeling graph should look like this. So these are all the storytelling aspect of how you tell your story to your stakeholders. So you used your baseline models, right? And this gave you some 60% and then some 50% and 40% accuracy. And then you move towards basic neural network models like the ANN, RNN, and CNN, whatever you use for any particular model. And next with NLP, there is a concept of embedding, word embedding. You might have all heard about it. What is an embedding? So after using a neural network with word embedding, you get a major boost in the accuracy percentage, and you have reached to somewhere around 95% or 93% accuracy with neural network with word embeddings. Okay. Now this was the evaluation of your model. Now, once you have created your model, you have to deploy this model and put this to production. Now, how can you put this model into production, right? As the product is not consumed on real-time basis, it would not require any streaming data prediction. Okay, what is a streaming data prediction? For example, if I want to predict um, uh, millions of records, what is the probability of giving a loan to a particular individual, right? And so you have created a model which is a classification model, and it real time predicts whether should I give this person a loan, or should I reject the loan, or should it go to scrutiny, right? These type of application would get probably millions of requests every day, right? If you are working in a big organization, so it would require streaming data. Okay, the data will stream. Now, since the particular problem which we have discussed right now, the earnings call transcript one, it does not require any streaming data. So you can run batches of data on the application and put this on the server. And whenever the user wants to use this through say for example this product, right? Um, this product, if I go to Apple, right? So it can go to this application and figure out what's the news and what is the earnings about this, and uh, whether should we divide this or segregate this to any topic or not, right? So you can see that these are headlines of a particular news article, and it has been categorized into different topics like environmental, community and regulatory, labor issues, right? um, and products and earnings announcement, right? So these are the type of categories, and this is not a real-time prediction. It has already been predicted and loaded in the server, and you're just seeing this, But obviously this was all done through machine learning algorithms. Okay, so the data scientist will push the prediction results to the data lake or database, and this can be plugged into an API to feed the result into an existing UI created for the definitive product. So you have to understand one thing, that all of these data which you see here, okay, are present in a database in the backend. Okay, and this UI application, the the front end application is talking to the database through API. Okay, if we want to do a prediction, or the machine learning model wants to do a prediction, it is talking through the database to the database through API. Okay, will we have already gone through what is API, which is application programming interface. But if you have any question, do reach out to me. We can go through it again. And it needs to be continuously monitored, okay, to check if the performance of the model is getting day by day better, or it is showing any downturn. Say for example, any model which you have created in 2018 might not work in 2019 because you had this whole COVID scenario, or 2020 you had this COVID scenario, right? So the model does not know anything related to COVID or quarantine, these type of words, and will not be able to do justice to it. Okay, it will not be able to you know categorize this into a new domain or a new category. So for that you need to again train your model with this type of data, user data. Okay, so you have to continuously monitor your model. Now this monitoring can be 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 1 month. You can monitor your model every month. If it is very critical product, you have to monitor it every week, right? And the development cycle life cycle takes place through enterprise AI like AWS or Azure or GCP. Okay. Now step 5 is monitoring. Now, as I said, you need to monitor it. So you have to carefully observe the machine learning model's performance in the product over time. So the user should give feedback to your model that, okay, these are incorrect classification. Can we do something about it? So that when you retrain your model again, you can take those misclassification scenarios and put it in the training data again. Say for example, a particular headline or a particular script or transcript of a particular individual has been tagged incorrectly to, say for example, supply chain, but ideally it should be into production issues. Okay, so the user should have the liberty to monitor and showcase the issues. Now that is what I've said is the user feedback loop, a method of enabling continuous feedback from users to the product about the misclassification in the results. Say for example, if this is, say for example, one excerpt from your earnings or your news article, whatever it is, and it is tagged to inorganic growth and acquisitions, right? If it is going to acquire a new company or being part of the acquisition, right? But obviously looking through the data, you found that this is a incorrect classification. Okay, it should not be acquisition, it should be ideally expansion. Okay, so the user should have the flexibility to change this, okay, in the front end itself. So this is called taking the user feedback loop, and this will eventually make your algorithm more powerful. Okay, because real time users are giving you feedback. Obviously whenever a new product is launched in the market, you might see a lot of flaws and problems arising in the model. In If you don't take those feedbacks seriously, you cannot evolve your product effectively. So as a data scientist, you should take user feedbacks very effectively. Okay, now the final architecture of the entire process. Okay, how does this architecture look like? If you see, we start with the initial configuration. Okay, we configure everything, whether where should we take the data, you know which if I want to buy the data from some third party vendor, if there is any proprietary data, how to configure, how to plug each and every aspect, how to enable all these data sources so that I can collect the data. Once this is collected, you need to collect the data at somewhere, right? Once done, you need to do the feature engineering of the data, right? Once you do the feature engineering of the data, so if you just talk from a refinitive and earnings call project, which we just have seen right now, configuration is, configuring the data from external parties, or buying the data from some other sources and proprietary data, and then you collect the data in a data lake. So all your PDF is stored here. Then you do a feature extraction, you extract the features. Okay. And once that is done, you have to parallelly go through data verification as well. You have to do your data verification, whether your data is perfect. If it is has any problem, you have to do some user testing. And then here is the ML code which you write. And then you have your analysis tool to, analyze your model. How can I, show the results to the stakeholder? Should I use a Power BI application to deliver my results, create user stories and all, right? Then you have process management tool. You have your applications where, like Jira, where you track your code, uh, um, day-to-day activity. Should we have a, quality control check using, logging your defects, right? Next is your machine learning resource management. How to, manage the resources, like whether to put this on Azure, or whether to, create a pickle file, or should I host this via API, or whatever resource management you want to do for your machine, whether I want a CPU or a GPU, all of it. And then you have the service infrastructure. What is the service infrastructure? This is the entire, the AWS, GCP, or your Azure cloud services. Okay, which services the entire thing to you, okay, at one place. And then you have the monitoring aspect where you monitor the data. Now from this, you can imagine that all of it has different, you know sizes of boxes. Okay. And these boxes will basically tell you how much effort is required for each of this. So obviously you can see the machine learning code is probably the least amount of effort which is required, or right. It may be a very important aspect for your entire product, but machine learning code are does not require too much time to, create or configure, if you look into a very big project. Understood? So entire process should go towards, data collection, feature extraction, and data verification, analysis, and project process management, and all. And at the end, you have the Azure, GCP, AWS, which is a huge pool because it takes a lot of money to, source this to these enterprise AI systems. All right. I hope you understood this entire process. All right. So with that, I will take a short break, and we'll regroup again in some time. If you have any question, do let me know, and then we will talk about, how to collect user data. What are the different challenges which we have with collecting user data? um, and if we, want to launch an AI solution, what are the things which you need to keep in mind? Any example of data verification? Now data verification is actually done by, unit testers who are into the testing team. So um, whatever models you create should be actually, tested by some set of QA team or the quality analyst team, who will find out whether your model are good enough. Because in unit testing we are not able to, you know we just do some sanitary testing, or cosmetic testing on the data. But effectively, if you want to create, test scenarios and test cases, you have to have data verification. So the QC team looks into it. I don't have the results with me, but I will try to find out something and share with you. Okay. We will conclude this session by completing the last part of it, which is, as a data scientist, why do you need to collect user data while working on AI/ML solutions? All right. So data scientists actually collect a lot of data. right? When I say scientist, it's data science team altogether, and you are an important part of that team. So you continuously look out for leveraging existing data and collecting new data to build your AI ML model, right? And the challenges which a data scientist face is, with user privacy. So it's not related to the problem which we saw, right? It is altogether. If you want to, for example, Hotstar or Netflix, it wants to, you know procure the data from, or rather get the data from the users, they might have a lot of issue with privacy. Okay. And other times the launch of new AI system may feel a little scary and unwelcome to different individuals and different users, because if say a Chinese app which wants to gather your data, you might find it, a little troublesome. So regardless of what laws exist to protect user rights and the data, right? And obviously you have seen that press does not always paint AI in a positive light, and rightly so, because introducing AI into products therefore can be both a point of excitement and fear for users. And it is important that you as a data scientist nonetheless consider how best to collect data and launch models that take user concerns into account. Okay. Now, as a data scientist, you have to understand that your product should be built with user trust, right? And with great power comes great responsibility. Okay. Now, how would you best build trust for your users as a data scientist? So you have to create models. Say, for example, if you want to create a face recognition model, or if you want to create a product which looks into customers' browsing history, right? So you have to ask for permission, and you have seen this in any app now, right? So they ask you permission whether you want to, you know, find the location of a particular place, access to that particular application. So you ask for permission, you explain your results, whatever results you are getting out of the model, you have to also explain this to your user. Okay, we'll see the examples. And you have to give the user the control of that particular product. So it's not a one-way communication, but a two-way communication. So if a user wants to block certain feature of it, they are free to do it. And you have to differentiate between the confidence. How can you differentiate between the different levels of confidence you have? So let's understand this one by one. Now, ask for permission. This is both critical legally and for user trust. You have seen a lot of these applications where you ask for permission to use your data provided or you created, which is created by the user. And this could be in terms and conditions or notices before using a product feature. And most users are aware that their data is being used. So asking for permission shows your business is bringing transparency. Okay. So this is one of the way you can ask for permission, and this eventually builds your user trust. Explaining your results. So whenever you see an ad, you will see that why this ad is useful. So it basically tells you that why are you seeing this particular ad, okay, and what is the justification of it. So you are explaining the result to your customer, so the customer does not freak out that how come this application is getting to know about my browsing history, and why my search behaviors, or sorry, search results are particularly aligned towards whatever I have seen earlier. Why so? Okay. So this is how you are explaining your results. Now you have to give control to your user. So if the user does not want to felicitate any of its um, um, you know applications, okay, so it will be on user decision whether it wants to allow or not allow. Okay, so you have to give the control to the user. So it should be a two-way street. And next is we have to differentiate between the confidence. Say for example, if you have seen um, Netflix, it shows percentage of match. Okay, so we don't want to develop user experience around something with low confidence and pass it off as a high confidence. Okay, say for example, you created a model which just gives you 12% confidence that okay, this particular individual will like this particular movie. Okay, and you are not giving any percentage to it, then the user might think, okay, this might be, a good recommendation. And if it clicks and it feels that, oh, okay, my God, this is a very bad recommendation. And this eventually results in, a bad customer experience. So building user trust by helping understand the varying quality of the result. And in this case, we are differentiating between the confidence. Okay, so there is a breakout room activity which we'll not do today. Okay, but I will just go through the example today. Um, so eventually this class is of 4 hours, but I'm trying to squeeze it into 3 hours because these are the type of things which will require eventually when you mature in a data science field. Obviously, a lot of these companies wants mature data scientists to be part of their organization. So that's why I want personally to take this session. Now, suppose you are a data scientist at Netflix, how would you build trust in the users? So all the 4 aspects which you have seen. One is the asking for permission. So if you look for asking for permission, what you will do for Netflix is whenever you open the app for the first time, Netflix would send notifications like below, right? So this is how you ask for a permission. You give user the control, give the user control over who is using your account. So this is a control which you have created. Okay, explaining the results, you want to explain your results, why the movie is recommended to you, because you added this movie mocking kill a mockingbird to your list. These are the recommendations which we highly suggest, because you watched this particular movie. That's why I'm recommending these movies to you. So you are explaining the results to your users. And again, the differentiate between confidence is actually taken from the Netflix example, where you're showing your users how confident you are with your recommendations. All right. Now, how does Google rank web pages on its search engine? How can you improve a web page's rank? Can you hack your way to improve your web page's rank? Okay, how does Google do it? Now, in the early days, Google used to, so we are talking about bad actors in security here. So that's why I came to the Google example. In the early days, Google used to map keywords used on the web page to people's search terms. When individuals like bad actors caught on to this, everyone began to use those keywords in some way or the other to index their site on the top of the search Google searches. Okay, so if you have any idea about SEO, you will understand that there are keyword techniques which is used to index your site the top of the search engine. Google has to then change its search algorithm, and even with AI ML intervention, Google keeps on changing its training data to ensure the security is not breached by bad actors. Okay, so nowadays you see a lot of these SEO experts are here in the market, digital analyst, digital marketing, and they do these things. Okay, so they basically, this is a legal thing, nothing illogical or illegal about it. So they basically find out keywords which are used, and they try to rank your model, rank your video on top, right? But eventually YouTube and Google and all these products or companies keep changing their training data to make sure that they don't get the hack that everyone like individuals take advantage of it. Okay, next is what are the different sources of security breach in AIML solution? So bad actors, as I said, and the security lapses which might happen is machine learning models uh, can be breached either through the training data or user interface. As a data scientist, you have to ensure that you sit with the product team to consider edge cases of how your model could be manipulated by bad actors and put security measures into place to prevent them from doing so. Let's understand this with an example. Now, individuals can provide AI positive reinforcement for its bad actions. Microsoft learned this the hard way with its release of TAE and TIE and AI chatbot that they released on Twitter. Microsoft described it as an experiment to developing understanding in chatbots, where the more you chat with TIE, the smarter it gets. Now, however, there are bad actors and people understood how it works, right? So in less than 24 hours, Microsoft had to take Tay offline because she was displaying racist and inappropriate behavior. As a product manager and a data scientist, it is our, you know, we have to understand that what are the security risks which might happen if we create a model that can put our organization at risk. Okay, so you can obviously see that it is tweeting some inappropriate things. Okay, now how does AI always produce better results than human? So sorry, does AI always produce better results than humans? So as I said, is it worth spending a lot of money on each and every aspect of a data science project? Now with Amazon in 2014, they began the process of training a machine learning model on resume applications wanting a job at Amazon. The hope was that it would help Amazon sort through thousands of job applications it received and identify the candidates with the most potential. Now it turned out to be the machine was biased against female applicants for technical jobs. How did that happen? Because when resumes were fed to machine using in the training data set, a great candidates were mostly of men, and the model picked up on subtle differences in resumes of females and male candidates, including the types of words used to outline a person's skill set. So by 2015, Amazon had to scrap the project, but this is only one of the many true examples of how bias is found in AI. So if you want to learn more about it, I can share the link. You can read the entire blog post. Now, Compass and AIML model used in the US to aid the prediction of criminal reoffending was biased against African Americans, predicting that they would reoffend many more time than they actually do. Okay, so Google's AI presented high income job postings more often to men than women, and most facial recognition systems have way higher error rates for minorities and people of color. So this is how the bias works in AI. Now, how do we combat bias? Okay, so it's really not easy for a product manager or a data scientist, to take your time to vet your models for biases. So we have to also understand that we have to consider potential biases in the training data. If there is any potential biases, we have to make sure that data scientists and analysts and those with data domain experience discuss if there are any biases that originate deep in the data set. Say, for example, addresses are not biased. However, rich, poor, and minorities all tend to live in neighborhoods with people similar to their social economic situation, or certain styles of speech are common with different groups of people or different ages. So we have to understand, we have to take enough statistical samples and randomness in the data to make sure that there is very less human bias. Okay. You have to diversify your data. You have to evaluate your label data to make sure that it is not particularly biased towards a particular label, right? You have to test your performance with different subgroups to make sure that it works ideally with all categories of your data. All right, so with that we will end our session. I hope you understood the entire aspect of a data science product life cycle and how it works. I will share this slide with you. If you have any question, do let me know. This is part of the NLP curriculum, and we wanted to also showcase the entire bigger picture of a product lifecycle.